Welcome to the ELLICSR Kitchen. We have a very exciting class today. My name is Jeremy Capone, by the way, so I'm the wellness chef here at ELLICSR.
And I'm Stephanie Gladman, the dietitian, kind of combining our skills to give you some education. Today's a special day, but also a special month because we're celebrating Nutrition Month. Mm-hmm. And so you may have heard on the news or on social media, but all dietitians around the country are unlocking the potential of food. So that's kind of the theme. And how we decided to bring it come to life in the ELLICSR Kitchen was looking at all the ways that food nourishes us beyond just the nutrients. So looking at how it helps us fuel, so giving us energy, rebuilding those cells and muscles, as well as how it helps heal the body. So regarding digestive issues or managing different side effects. But lastly, what we think is one of the most important is how food brings us all together.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that we're going to show you through the 3 different recipes, looking at those very important properties of how food fuels us, heals, and brings us together. Mm-hmm. So the first recipe, we're focusing on that aspect of fueling and how snacking is and can be very beneficial in order to provide somebody with the energy that they need throughout the day. So snacking, the definition is loose, but really and truly it's having food in between meals. So, if you're eating and it's, you have 6 hours in between, you might want to consider having a snack. And so we're gonna look at this recipe as a way to provide an example of what a snack can look like.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a little different, probably not your typical snack, but I wanted to highlight a couple ingredients here and even just the planning, the meal planning that went into sort of organizing a recipe like this, because I think it can be really helpful. So when we talk about other snack making or meal building, it's you want it to be as efficient as possible. You don't want to be spending a ton of time in the kitchen. This particular recipe we're talking about, fuel, it's going to take you 2 hours, 3 hours to cook the meal. Probably, that fuel might have gone away. So what we want to do is think about what we can do ahead of time to set us up for these quick meal building recipes. So the way I break it down is usually trying to get some of your starches or your carbohydrates together. So those are some of the different grains maybe that you can cook. Today we're using Farro grain, which might be new to some of you, but it could be barley, it could be some whole wheat couscous, some wild rice, quinoa, and essentially what I usually do is just make a big batch, cook a big batch of it, and then you can store it in the refrigerator, and that usually lasts like 3 to 4 days, or you can even stick it in the freezer, and that'll last even longer for like 2 months. And then from there, you can add it quickly to different recipes, different meals, and especially if that's going to be the longest part of the meal, you're cutting a lot of that time out.
By doing it in advance.
By doing it in advance, yeah.
So just to highlight 2 points that Jeremy brought up. So using the farro, so this is a whole grain, which is a complex carbohydrate. So it has both the fiber, but it also has protein. So looking at these 2 things, when you're choosing a snack, you do want to build it so that you're getting both kind of that complex carbohydrate that's higher in fiber, but also a protein. And that grain actually has both, which is a good example.
Has anyone heard of farro before? No. Yeah. Some of you, okay, it's very similar to spelt, if you've heard of the spelt grain. It is a form of wheat. It's from a slightly different family. It's the first thing that came to mind when Stephanie mentioned fuel. It's like your goal today is fuel. And in farro grain, they used to actually use for like the Roman legions before preparing for battle, they would give them farro. Farro was sort of that fuel source. So I thought, okay, well, we might not be, fighting on the battlefield, but it's definitely still a good whole grain to choose for a good fuel source. So We've cooked up some farro here. This is what it looks like dried. And you can kind of come up after if you want to have a look. But it's fairly simple to prepare. It's about 25 minutes boiling. So about a cup of farro to about 5 cups of water. And you bring it to a boil, lid on, reduce heat to low, and just let it simmer for about 25 to 30 minutes until it becomes chewy. I did that in advance because that would be a very boring class to watch this boil. So this is what it looks like. It splits a bit, but it has a nice, almost like very similar to barley texture. So that's going to be the base of our salad, right? But we can use this in multiple different recipes. Then the vegetable component, we're going to be using some carrots today. I guess today is it today officially the first day of spring?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so I mean, it might not seem like it yet, but some of the first growth, you're going to see a lot of different greens, some of those early carrots. So it's nice to get something refreshing, bring the spring in. And this can be anything. It can be frozen broccoli, it can be cauliflower, whatever you want. Throw a big tray, roast it in the oven, and then that is another vegetable component that you can sort of sneak into different meals. Yeah. So for this, very simply, we're going to just dress it. It's a little bit of olive oil. Just a pinch of salt. I mean, you can put whatever you want. I'm just trying to keep it simple.
Yeah, and you might notice that the types of vegetables or even fruit that you're having with the season changes. And that's different because our routines and our habits change sometimes with the seasons based on what's in stock at the grocery stores or food markets. So pay attention to that and be curious and, choose what's in season and what you feel like having. Slowly we're starting to move away perhaps from those heavy soups and, meat potato type of thing for meal times and kind of maybe wanting something a little bit more lighter. So although we're building kind of this snack, it definitely can be used as something for a meal as well, maybe just in a larger portion.
Yeah, so I like to add some pumpkin seeds too, just for some texture. You can put some different nuts in there if you want. I'm obviously making a very tiny portion. So what I would suggest, if you're gonna do it, make it a lot bigger. Use what you wanna use and then you can save the rest for later, right? So we're gonna toss this, again, very, very simple dressing. And the way I like to cook them, I like to roast these in the oven. So put them onto a baking sheet. Sometimes you'll see in recipes, they'll say like 350, maybe 375, and roast some of these heartier vegetables for a little bit longer. What I actually like to do is increase the temperature and keep it in there for less time. I get a little bit, it's less time, so it's gonna be done a little bit quicker, but you're gonna get a little bit more caramelization, a little bit more character, a little more flavor coming out of that. So it's up to you. The way I design the recipe is for a little bit of a higher heat. So this is gonna go in the oven.
Now, what Jeremy was saying earlier about trying to plan those meals ahead of time, we know that almost 50% of Canadians are skipping meals. So what does that mean? Well, sometimes when you're skipping a meal, you might be at the next time you eat much very, very hungry, and sometimes overeat. So that's why having snacks on hand or even preparing in advance is a really good tool to just even think about what you want to have, getting those groceries in advance, and then making time to actually cook is helpful for providing you with the fuel you need throughout your day.
Yeah, so this is what we're looking for with the carrots, right? So they've sort of concentrated in flavor. You get a little bit of that caramelization on the end, a lot of really, really nice flavor. And again, it doesn't take too much time in there. So I'm just gonna assemble this. We'll have some of this farro grain in here. And this, I mean, it could be anything that you like. You can use the barley instead. We'll just grab the parchment, it's a lot easier. We'll throw those carrots inside. And then for a quick dressing, and again, this is something that would be a great idea to make a bigger batch, have it on hand, have it in your fridge, and that way you can just sort of add that little pop of flavor into different dishes. So I just have some chopped parsley. These are just herbs, some chopped parsley. it's going to look like a considerable amount of olive oil, but I'm not using this entire thing, right? I'm making like a dressing, and then I'll use maybe just a couple tablespoons of that dressing. So don't be afraid to use a little bit of olive oil there, and we're going to use a nice punch of lemon for some acidity. Almost like a rough pesto, right? I don't have to blend anything, so it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
We're going to get a lot of that beautiful flavor, so we'll mix it up.
Yeah. And also just kind of thinking about when throughout the day you might be aiming for those snacks. You know, is it the 4 o'clock time when you're at work or at your desk and, you know, you're getting tired and you need something to do or want something to do and you're aiming for, you know, what kind of snacks do you go for? Are you going to the vending machine, the coffee shop, which might have healthy snacks, but, you know, perhaps you're making different choices, which, you know, then, you know, you want to look and see, you know, what is appropriate. You don't want to have guilt or shame around aiming for those snacks because you do need to refuel. But kind of just thinking about whether you want something that's like, do you have more of a sweet tooth or a savory tooth? And I would say that something like this is something that might be a little bit more on the savory side. I'm jumping ahead because we're going to be adding
For sure.
a little bit of feta in it as well.
Yeah, snack doesn't always mean like it has to be like a sweet snack. I prefer savory snacks.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just plating it up here. But again, dressed it with a little bit of that parsley dressing, and then, you know, you can add some feta on top if you want, or add some chickpeas. Like Stephanie mentioned, you're getting a bit of protein from the farro, but if, I mean, you can always punch that up with whatever you want on top there.
And that's the thing with snacks is kind of, it's not only providing you a boost with energy, but thinking of it as like a puzzle piece. So your meals are the 3 things you're having during the day, and the snacks kind of just add more to it. So if, let's say, you know that you're not getting enough calcium, well, perhaps you can choose some feta to sprinkle on top of your small snack salad, I would say, to kind of increase and boost up the calcium in your day.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's it. That's our little fuel salad.
Yeah.
A little farro, a little carrot, and that's it. Pretty quick recipe.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Wow.
Okay.